In this video, we're going to talk about the layers palette and how to move things around in it, how to change names, as well as where to locate it. The layers palette is located on the right side. You might have yours hidden. So I have mine hidden so I have more room, but you can see I just made mine a little bit bigger, and you can see that the layers are down here. I can always, in the little barriers, kind of like click and drag and move these around so I can make certain things a little bit bigger, certain things a little bit smaller. Layers is a good one to have very big. You can also minimize it, and the layers looks like a series of a couple of layered pieces of paper. So when I click on it, it comes out and it's a lot bigger. And that can be helpful depending on how you like to work. You can also minimize and extend that so that you have more or less that you can see. We can see that I have a couple of different objects in my scene. I've got one full head, and then I've got the skull of a different head. I've moved them around. In my layers palette, you can see when I'm working on one, you can see I'm moving this head. It is now highlighted in the layers palette. Whereas if I click on the other one, it's going to highlight on that one. I can also tell it that I want to move around and work on one specific one. So if I want to erase from this ram head, which I need to rasterize it first, I'm going to move over to the eraser, and you can see that I am erasing from that head, but not the other one. It's because I'm on that particular layer. Same thing if I want to erase from the other head, but not this head. So make sure you know what layer you're working on so that you're making the adjustments on that layer. If you want to change what things are viewed on top of each other, you want to change which order they are in the layers. Right now, we can see that the full head is over the bone head. But I could drag it below, and you can see that shifted. I can also drag the purple layer above both of them, and that has put that on top, so it's the first thing that we see. I'm going to drop it back down, and I kind of like this thing that's starting to set up of the bone head being on top of this other head, but we're not going to be making art right now. I'm just kind of goofing about. So let's look at the layers palette and a couple of the things that you can do with it. I'm going to make the bottom a little bit smaller so it's all put together and so that we can focus on it. If I click on the name and I'm going to double click on it, notice how it turned blue and I can change the name. So now I can really easily understand what my layers are. Now that I know I have that violet crop layer that I like to have there, and I've got my two skulls. Say I don't want to see one at the moment because I want to say I'm working on the fleshy layer, so I can hide the skull layer by clicking on the little space next to it. There's a little bit of an eye there, and if the eye is off, then we can't see it, but it still exists. And if the eye is on, we can see it. So I'm going to turn off this violet layer because I don't think it's necessary since I'm not cropping anymore. Some other things that we can do is you can add new layers. Down at the bottom, there's this little plus sign, and in different versions, it looks like a piece of paper. I can create a new layer, and then I can rename it to whatever it is that I need. I can also delete layers by pressing the trash can, and that will give up a little bit of a pop-up window that'll ask if I'm okay with that. And I said yes, and you can see it is gone. There's a couple of other functions under here that are kind of cool, but you don't need to get too in-depth with each of these until I do another video. One that is helpful is a group. So I'm going to put a group so I can start organizing things. In my group, you can see that it has a drop-down, and nothing's inside of it right now. But I'm going to drag and drop the skull in there, and you can see that now it's a part of the group. So I can open and close that folder. And I'm going to do the same with this the fleshy skull. And I'm going to move them around because I still want the skull on top of the fleshy bits. But I can make that smaller, so now that I don't have to look at everything in here, I have a little bit more real estate. And so I'm going to rename this ram heads. Another thing that you guys can do is you can change the opacity. So I'm going to say that I want the skull a little bit more transparent. I can click and drag on the name, or I can type in specifically how much I want this at, and we'll say 35% sounds good. You can see now the skull is transparent, but over the other one. I can also play around with blending properties. So I'm going to pull up the opacity, and the blending modes are right here. Here's normal, but I can also blend it with other ones. And you can see that it wants to blend with whatever's below it. So we can see that it is blending with the bottom one in a method of color burning. So it looks like it's burnt into this, but I'm going to put it back to normal so that it functions like a normal design. So that is the layers palette, and how to navigate it and how to work through.